Greetings, everyone. Steve Cole here, coming at you again from the Access Training Team at Ada County Paramedics. And once again, I'm here to talk to you about High Performance CPR. We've been at the High Performance CPR game now for probably 6, maybe even 7 years. And at some point, it may sound like we're a broken record. I think most of you have bought off on the concept of High Performance CPR, that compression makes an impact. But this is a high consequence, high stakes endeavor, and as such it requires constant maintenance, and that's what we're going to do here. Is we're going to refresh you on the concepts, introduce you a couple new ones. The good news about this, or the exciting news, is that there's always a little bit more we know every year, and we're going to try to pass some of that on. Now, key to our high performance CPR concept is the concept of teamwork in resuscitation teams. And what I'd like to do right now is take a moment to have you listen to one of the original conceivers of the high performance resuscitation concept, the former medical director of King County and Seattle Medic 1, Dr. Michael Kopis, as he talks about high performing resuscitation teams.
Well, culture of excellence is one of those phrases that gets overworked by Madison Avenue types. And culture of excellence is, to my way of thinking, the Green Bay Packers in 1964-65, when the team wasn't filled with superstars. Maybe there was a guy from Notre Dame who was good, but Bart Starr wasn't all that great, and the pass catchers weren't good. But they played together in such a fashion that they never expected to lose. And there was a concept that one of them, and I think it was Thurston, said, we didn't lose the game, we just ran out of time. And my bias about measuring a program and looking at a program and working in a program is that there should be a rule that you obey every day when you go to work, and that is nobody dies in my rig. Nobody dies under my care. I will aim as high as I possibly can to make sure that this individual's life is guaranteed. And when you do that, you work hard to gather skills and style and habits that propitiate success and effectiveness. And it could be that it's a culture, but it's a behavior, it's a willingness to give of yourself so that everybody in the group, including the patient, does extremely well. And when you look back on good athletic teams and when you look back on good medical teams, you think about the medical team that was collected at Baylor and the phenomenal activities of the heart surgery program. It's because everybody contributed and played over their head. Way over their head, and then finally discovered that they could play over their head and set the bar up and played over their head again. So the culture of excellence is pursuing high standards, and every time you reach your standard, set the bar higher. Every time you achieve success in the measurement of a difficult piece of music, then set the bar higher, either more difficult music or faster or better or whatever. But the rule needs to be that I don't take humans for granted, and I will work over my head, beyond my capability that I see it, to achieve success.
And I think that concept what he's talking about has been approached with all of our training here in the Access system and Ada County Paramedics. And when I say that, we go beyond simply saying, well, you're an EMT, you only need to know this, or that you're a paramedic, this is your responsibility. We hold everybody, at least I like to think we hold everybody, to a high standard, because that encourages people to perform to that high standard. And why is that important? Well, the reason why that's important in this topic is that about 350,000 people die from sudden out-of-hospital cardiac arrest every year. And when we talk about out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, we're not talking about the ones who die from cancer and stuff like that. We're talking about the ones who, what we traditionally think of as the ones who die unattended, not under direct medical care, who die from, cardiac events, pulmonary emboli, and stuff like that. Now, in Ada County, in the Access system, we had 236 of these non-traumatic working codes in 2020. This number is a little bit down from previous years. I think that's partly due to the pandemic, but we've had as high, well over 250 before, and I think that for better or for worse, in 2022, we'll probably get above that as well. So, unfortunately, when you have this many sudden cardiac arrest and you look nationally with the poor outcomes, sometimes we get a little jaded, that we're just going through the motions, that it won't make a difference. And I'm here to tell you it does. Now, I've talked about this case before, but I think it is important to mention again the case of Howard Snitzer. And Howard Snitzer was in Goodhue, which is a very small town. I like to liken it to Mayberry. And he had 96 minutes of continuous compressions. Now, he is not this is not a hypothermia type cardiac arrest. This is a patient who literally was walking down the street after working out at a local gym, collapsed on the sidewalk in front of a cafe in a garage, a mechanic's garage. The two mechanics came over, started CPR, and then everybody piled out of the cafe and elsewhere. And by the time the flight crew showed up, because this was a very rural community with just BLS, there was a line of people down the sidewalk waiting for their 2 minutes to do CPR, all working together as a team, to save his life. Now, he walked out of the hospital just a few days later with no neurological deficits. Now, the key thing is it wasn't the paramedics that saved him. It wasn't the flight nurses, the flight medics. It was the 60 minutes of CPR they had before they ever showed up on scene. High quality, high performance CPR, rigorously applied, saves lives. Now you think, okay, yeah, but that's one weird case. Well, I was curious because I've heard about other cases that have come to be that have made the news here and there, and there was actually a literature review in 2016 that looked at the past 5 years and found 86 cases of extreme, in the United States alone, of prolonged CPR. Now, 86 cases isn't a lot when you consider about the total number, but this does show that it is possible. 86 cases. The median time of compressions was about 75 minutes. That's well over an hour. 74% of these cases were witnessed, which, is not surprising, but it also means that 26% were not. But the one thing they all had in common was documented good CPR for the entire time of their resuscitation, especially at the beginning. Now you think, okay, yeah, so they got them back. Do they survive? Well, 83%, the majority of them survived greater than 1 year, and 73% had an excellent neurological outcome. This is remarkable, and it's far better than the national average. And you think that given the prolonged resuscitation time, it would be much worse. But again, the thing that these all had in common was good quality resuscitation. 96% of the patients had good CPR. So with that in mind, I want to ask you a question. Some of you have been through my high performance class, the full class, may have heard this before. I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and ask yourself, what is resuscitation? What does it mean to you? Not just the physical act, but what is it? What are you putting into it? So pause the video, take a second, and we'll come back. Okay, now that you've had a thought to a little bit of time to think about that, maybe to ask your buddies who may be watching this with you, what if I told you that resuscitation is Kung Fu? Resuscitation is nothing more than Kung Fu. Now you may think, okay, what wild little crazy thing is Steve Cole going down? I'll tell you what I'm going down. Kung Fu is simply time and effort. Kung means, or Gong is another Americanized way to say it, is simply skillful work, hard training, or endeavor. The work that we put into mastering resuscitation, whether you're an EMT basic or whether you're a paramedic, you have something to contribute to this. Something meaningful, something important, that without your work, especially as an EMT, it all falls apart. Fu simply means the time spent in that hard training or endeavor. So conceptually, what we're asking is, well, how is your resuscitation Kung Fu? What is the time and effort you're putting into mastering this? Are you clicking this video and walking away and making dinner and playing video games while this plays in the background or checking your email? Or are you thinking forward and thinking, how am I going to apply these principles to the next cardiac arrest? So how can we improve our resuscitation kung fu? Well, the big thing is we put in time. We train more often than the minimum is required. Now, AHA talks about resuscitate, or their cards are good for 2 years. We train every year. But the truth is, this biannual training may not be enough. Yearly may not be enough. Perhaps we are looking forward, and there's some concept called high frequency, low intensity training every quarter. And we're talking about that as a system. But even if we aren't there yet, as captains, as FTOs, as engine company captains, as training officers, do you ever pull out the AED just to go through some training? Do you request it from your support team? Do you review what you would do with your team, your partners on the way to a call, instead of just saying, we all know exactly what's going to happen? Now, do you put in the effort? Do you show up just to block training, so let me get this checked so I can get out and do the stuff I want to do? Or do you really try to put in the extra effort to master your compressions, your compression fraction, your recoil, your ventilatory control, and all the stuff we're going to talk about today? Ask yourself, what type of training works? And the answer is, there is no single thing that works. It's a combination. It's multifactorial. It's multidimensional. So it's hands-on training plus knowledge-based training plus feedback. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, is feedback, using the feedback on the monitor and using feedback as a system. And what I would ask you as we go along this journey today is, if you are a leader, whether you're an engine company captain, whether you're a captain, a battalion chief, whether you're an FTO, or whether you're just a medic on the box, lead the way to master this, please. So let's look at and see how our time and effort is paying off. Well, we know that when we started High Performance CPR, we saw an immediate improvement. We saw a 10% improvement in ROSC across the board. Rather significant improvement. But it's been hard to maintain that. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So we look at the last 3 years. And I included 2018. I included 2018 over here. Let me get my handy dandy pen. 2018 over here. Just because that's pre-pandemic. 2019 is in the middle. This is during the pandemic, and 2020 is the last complete year we have, because we're still in 2021. And what we found is, as an access system, we went into the pre-pandemic period with a overall resuscitation rate, overall resuscitation rate of 13.4%, and it dropped 3%, give or take, actually a little bit less than 3%, when the pandemic hit, and it dropped further. Now we're going to talk about why some of that is, but it also is kind of a bit of a wake-up call that we need to work harder to get our numbers up, because numbers are more than numbers. Numbers are people. That's what it comes down to. Now, we're not the only ones that had a drop nationally. If you look over here on the right-hand side, 9.5% survival. 2019 was at 10%, and then they dropped to 9% after the pandemic really kicked in. So nationally, they were on the uptick, but then things dropped off dramatically. So if you look at, we're still ahead of the game by about 0.6%, which is not that much. But I want to talk about some important factors there. So why did things change? Well, part of it is the pandemic. It takes longer to get out the door, longer to get on guard, and to get in and make contact with patients. We also are seeing some changes in bystander CPR. People less willing to engage in CPR, but also because people were staying home during a lot of this, more cardiac arrests were happening in the home. And we know that people who have cardiac arrest in the home, compared to those who have sudden cardiac arrest out in the public eye, are less likely to get CPR for a number of different reasons. For example, older patients are in the home with other older family members who are less likely to help, stuff of that nature, or less likely to do effective CPR. The other factor, the kind of double whammy, is we've definitely seen an increase in opioid abuse. And opioid-induced cardiac arrest is a different animal than the other types of cardiac arrest. Now, if you get there quickly, it should respond quickly to basic resuscitation. However, there's a lot of social and economic factors that delay response or delay the call for help in the opioid epidemic. So I think these two things are a part of it. But also, I think we just need to, I'm not bashing anybody, I really am not. But we become comfortable in our high performance. And we need to become uncomfortable again, if you follow my meaning. We need to realize that this will never be a journey that is done, that it requires constant effort every day. So I know this, I've kind of hit a low note here, but let's talk about the numbers that count. Now here on the right hand side, I have our local numbers, access data. And here on the left hand side, I have the exact same numbers for the nation. And when we looked at, there's something called the CARES reporting system, and the CARES is the Cardiac Arrest Registry that not every agency reports to. Actually, surprisingly, when you look at all the 14,000 EMS agencies nationwide, only a few states have mandatory reporting. And those states that don't have mandatory reporting, not every agency, very few agencies report. We are one of them because we're dedicated to improvement. And this is a good benchmark. Now, we talk about CPC scores. These are cerebral performance category scores. Score goes from 1 to 5. A score of 1 to 2 is a good neurological outcome. So that's what counts. The scores that are 3, 4, and 5, those aren't good outcomes. So these numbers here are the ones that are our wins, our victories. Now, out of our 229 total non-traumatic patients, we had 88 witnessed by bystanders. We had 120 that were unwitnessed. In other words, they were found in the home. And then we had 21 that were witnessed by first responders where they coded in front of us. Now, out of all of those, we had 22 with a CPC score of 1 or 2. That's a 9.6 survival quality survival rate. And when I looked at the numbers for the national data for 2020, that's over 2.5% more than the national average. Now, 2.5% isn't a lot, doesn't seem like a lot, but it shows that what we're doing here is better than what many other agencies are doing. But we're still not where we can be. If we could just get a 5% improvement on those numbers, that would be 11 to 12 patients more who would go home to spend Christmas with their families. Just a 5% improvement can make a huge difference in our local community. So what does this mean? How do we be better? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next few videos. We're going to break down high performance CPR and the key things that we do to be better. Some of you've heard before. Some of it we're going to come at from a different way, and some of you may not have heard. So with that in mind, I thank you for your time, and I'll see you in a few minutes.